long before the first great beasts thundered across the plains, before the forest canopy trembled beneath footsteps heavier than anything alive today. There was silence broken only by the whisper of wind through cycads and the distant crackle of volcanic fire. The earth, in those ancient hours, was still learning how to live. Its skin shifted with the forming of continents. Its breath, hot and humid, swirled through fern-choked valleys, and from that breath emerged a creature unlike any before it. Not a titan, not yet, but a glimpse of what the world would become. That creature was no larger than a house cat, perhaps 3 feet in length and weighing less than a turkey. It darted through the underbrush of what we now call South America. It had long legs, forward-facing eyes, and a jaw of sharp teeth. Not for show, for precision, for survival. But this was not a world where size meant dominance. In the late Triassic, Earth was ruled by giant amphibians, towering phytosaurs, crocodile-like beasts that slithered into lakes with jaws as long as a grown man is tall. There were Rauzukians, terror reptiles with armored skin and a bone-crushing bite, whose footsteps cracked through dry floodplains. In this world, dinosaurs were not yet kings. They were shadows, opportunists, survivors. Raptor's greatest weapon was not strength, it was adaptability. It could eat meat or plants. It could climb or run. It could disappear. This flexibility was its edge in a brutal ecosystem. But evolution is never content with whispers. It demands volume. It demands contrast. So while Eoraptor hunted insects in the twilight, another shape loomed larger, nearly twice its size, with powerful jaws and a pelvis structure more aligned with the later great predators. Herasaurus was one of the earliest. Truth. It didn't scavenge. It stalked, it pounced, and it killed. Its teeth were its forelimbs were muscular, claws like meat hooks. It didn't need to be fast. It needed only to be first. In this primitive stage of dinosaur evolution, we already see the outlines of a future war between agility and force, between prey and predator, between those who hide and those who hunt. Yet even as carnivores honed their fangs, the herbivores responded. One of the first large herbivorous dinosaurs, it stretched up to 30 feet in length and weighed over 4 tons. It moved on 2 legs but could fall to all 4s to forage. It didn't fight, its size was its armor. When predators saw a Platysaurus herd, they didn't charge. They waited, they watched, they searched for the small, the weak, the slow. Now imagine the confrontation. Herasaurus, sleek and hungry, circles the edge of a muddy watering hole. A group of Plateosaurus drinks in the midday heat. The predator stays low, using tall ferns as cover. Its eyes lock onto a juvenile. Muscles tense. The herd senses the presence. One Platysaurus bellows a deep, rumbling sound that rolls like thunder through the forest floor. They begin to shift, slow and deliberate, forming a circle. The youngster is pushed inward. Herasaurus calculates, waits, moves. But this time, it's too late. A tail swings, missing by inches. Earth churns beneath stamping feet. Dust and heat fill the air. The predator retreats into the shadows. It will try again tomorrow. And so began the silent arms race, predator and prey evolving in tandem, one forcing the other to grow stronger, faster, smarter. This was the earliest canvas on which dinosaurs painted their destiny. Not with blood, not with glory, but with balance. For every Raptor, a shadow. For every Platysaurus, a blade. Evolution does not favor the strong. It favors the prepared. And in the distance beyond the forests and across the fractured lands of Pangitha, Earth stirs. Soon, the Triassic will collapse under its own instability. Volcanoes will flood the skies. The old giants will perish. And from there ashes will rise. The first true empires of scale, the Jurassic Titans. But even then, as the winds of change gather across time, one truth remains. Size is not everything. Comes in many forms. The Triassic did not end quietly. As if the Earth itself had grown weary of its experiments, the skies turned dark with ash, and fire poured from wounds deep in the planet's skin. Volcanoes erupted in cataclysmic waves across what is now the Atlantic Rift Zone. Carbon dioxide levels soared. Temperatures swung like pendulums. The great Rauzukians vanished. So to the armored amphibians. But in this apocalypse, the dinosaurs thrived. They did not just survive, they evolved. The Jurassic period opened like a curtain on a new play, and the stage was theirs alone. In the absence of ancient rivals, the dinosaurs began to diversify and grow, and grow, and grow. At the heart of this transformation stood two bloodlines, twin threads pulled by the hand of natural selection. and the sauropodomorphs, eaters of trees. From the theropod branch came Dilophosaurus, a beast of elegance and terror, nearly 7 meters in length, with a slender body and twin crests, arcing like blades from its skull. It was both hunter and symbol evidence that dinosaurs were becoming not only stronger, but stranger. Dilophosaurus didn't rely on brute force. It hunted with ambush, aided by its speed and intelligence. It killed swiftly, surgically, and moved on. In stark contrast, lumbered the mighty though modest compared to the giants that would follow. It stretched 16 meters long, with a neck like a bridge and legs like living pillars. It needed no speed. Its size alone was its statement. Here, we see the first real contrast of dinosaur dominance. Speed versus scale, predator versus colossus, bone versus bark. One lived in shadow, the other created its own shade. But Earth was not finished painting. The Middle Jurassic turned fertile ground into evolutionary laboratories. From the swamps of North America emerged Apatosaurus, a walking earthquake. It grew to over 20 meters long, with a tail that cracked like a whip and a chest as wide as a car. Its brain was laughably small, no larger than a lemon butt. It didn't need wit, it needed mass. And stalking these giants came Allosaurus. Now here was a predator designed by purpose, over 9 meters long, with jaws lined with serrated teeth and arms built to grip and slash. It was not the largest carnivore of its time, but it was agile. Its skull was light, its neck flexible. Unlike Dilophosaurus, which relied on ambush, Allosaurus hunted in daylight, in packs, perhaps with strategy. A single Allosaurus could not kill a full-grown Apatosaurus, but 3, 4, perhaps they could. The fossil record shows bite marks on sauropod bones that match Allosaurus teeth. Healed marks, which means the prey survived, which means the predator tried, which means there was war. War fought not in seconds, but in hours, days. War of endurance and blood and silence in the forests. Not just animal behavior, but the arms race of existence. As sauropods grew taller, their enemies grew sharper. As herbivores formed herds, carnivores coordinated. And always there was contrast. For not all herbivores could grow to titanic proportions. Some took a different path. One paved in armor, Stegosaurus, the walking fortress of the Jurassic, with plates like stone leaves rising from its spine and a tail ending in 4 spikes the size of swords. It was a statement in defense. It did not run. It stood, and when Allosaurus tested its luck, the Stegosaur's tail whipped with lethal force. One fossil shows a hole punched clean through a predator's pelvis, a wound delivered not by fang but by Here, the lesson was clear. Survival did not belong to the biggest or the fastest alone, but to the adapted, the defended. By now, the world had become a theater of opposites. Long-necked Brachiosaurus, grazing on treetops, moving like slow mountains. Short, armored, Kentrosaurus, low to the ground, bristling with spikes. Agile ornitholosts, quick and clever, darting after eggs and lizards. Massive Camarasaurus, herd-bound and gentle-eyed. No 2 dinosaurs were alike. Each was a reaction to the other. Predator shaped prey. Prey sharpened predator. Each existence demanded a counterbalance, and in the whispering wind that wound through the high canopies of ancient forests, a voice echoed, if not spoken, then felt. Balance is the only law here. As the Jurassic matured, nature grew bolder. The rules of survival, once simple, became more intricate. Defense was no longer limited to armor or mass. Speed was no longer the only answer to tooth and claw. Instead, dinosaurs began experimenting with shape, with weaponry, with behavior. Evolution painted in sharper contrast, and the results were often astonishing. Take Camarasaurus and Diplodocus, 2 giants who shared the same lands, yet took drastically different paths. Camarasaurus was bulky, compact, with a relatively short neck and a boxy head suited for chewing tough, fibrous plants. Its teeth, spoon-shaped, allowed it to grind vegetation efficiently, and it often traveled in herds. Safety in numbers, defense in volume. By contrast, Diplodocus was a ribbon of a creature, its body elongated, tail whip-thin, and neck reaching like a bridge into the sky. It was light for its size, its vertebrae hollowed to save weight. Its skull was narrow, its teeth positioned like rakes, suited for stripping soft leaves from trees. It didn't chew, it clipped, and it moved with eerie silence, its gait rolling like waves. Both were plant eaters, Both were immense, yet their strategies diverged so dramatically that they could share the same ecosystem without conflict. Diplodocus claimed the higher harmony through contrast. Predators, meanwhile, began facing an entirely new challenge. Variety. No longer could one set of skills secure domination. A hunter needed to adapt not just to one prey, but to many. Ceratosaurus, a Lesanan carnivore, developed a different approach from the reigning Allosaurus. While Allosaurus hunted with power and possibly cooperation, Ceratosaurus thrived near rivers and wetlands. Its body was more flexible, its teeth longer and thinner, better for grasping fish and soft flesh prey. It bore a horn atop its snout, not for battle, perhaps, but for display, a signal, a warning. So here we see not just a comparison of species but of ecosystems within ecosystems. Dry plains favored ambush killers, swamps favored agile fishers, forests favored speed, mountains favored patience, and then came the real curve. Compsognathus snow, larger than a chicken, yet nimble, fast, and clever. It hunted in packs, perhaps, or scavenged with skill. Fossils show it chasing insects, lizards, even the occasional hatchling. Here was a predator not of power, but of precision. It didn't overpower prey. It outlasted it. Next to it a colossus, towering at 23 meters, with forelimbs longer than its hind, giving its neck an upward sweep like a crane. Its nostrils, placed high on its head, may have allowed it to breathe while its snout reached into canopies dense with foliage. It was not graceful, but it was untouchable. No predator would risk a frontal assault. Even Allosaurus, bold and seasoned, would hesitate. What we begin to see here is not just size versus speed, but strategy versus structure. Compsognathus used agility to thrive in Brachiosaurus used sheer scale to monopolize resources. Both survived, both thrived, but neither could exist in the other's niche. Now, let us shift focus to intelligence, a new frontier in dinosaur comparison. Ornitholestes, a small but sharp theropod, is believed to have had better vision and coordination than most of its size. Its skeletal structure suggests fast reflexes, a predator not of strength, but of smart timing. And on the herbivore side, entered slender, bipedal with large eyes and legs built for sprinting. It didn't fight. Its survival depended not on strength, but on awareness, on alertness. One careless step, one hesitation, and it would feed the forest floor. Between them lies the quiet battlefield of wit where no blood is shed, but every misstep is fatal. As the Jurassic began its final act, these contrasts became more profound. Predators splintered into specialists, herbivores diversified in shape and defense. The planet itself began to change. The continents, once clustered, continued to drift. Climates shifted. Rainforests became arid, swamps gave way to dry plains, and on those plains, something stirred, smaller, faster, more coordinated. From the branches of the theropod family emerged the raptors, but they would not fully bloom until the next age. The Cretaceous loomed, and with it came the rise of creatures so finely honed, so beautifully designed for survival, that they remain etched in our imaginations thousands of millennia later. The age of tyrants, the age of raptors, the age of final dominion. But before we step across that threshold, we must look back one final time at the Jurassic world, not just of monsters, but of masterpieces in motion. A world of strategy, not chaos. Of balance, not brutality. Where every roar had a purpose, and every shape told a story. As the Jurassic Era neared its twilight, the Earth stood poised between memory and transformation. What began as a cradle of first dominions now bore the weight of matured empires, some fading, some peaking, or etched into the bones of the land. This was the final act for giants born of fire and pressure. Their successors were waiting just beyond the horizon, but for now, the Jurassic belonged to those who had earned their reign. Among them stood Torvosaurus, the great hunter of what is now Europe and North America, longer than Allosaurus, heavier, with a skull built for brute strength. It marked the final evolution of brute force theropods. In the Jurassic, its bite didn't slice, it crushed. Its arms, unlike the famously puny limbs of future predators, were muscular, tipped with claws that could rip through flesh and tendon in a single swipe. It was raw power, channeled into a living siege engine. Opposite it stood the High Lords of the Canopy, a cousin to Brachiosaurus, and one of the tallest creatures to ever walk the earth. Towering over 12 meters at the shoulder, It looked down upon the world from a perspective few creatures have ever known, but it was not unchallenged. With such size came burden, the need for constant food, constant movement, and the risk that even the ground itself could fail beneath its weight. Contrast that with Amargasaurus, smaller, sleeker, yet armored with a double row of spines along its neck and back, perhaps for defense, perhaps display, perhaps both. In the late Jurassic, adaptation was not only about size, it was about uniqueness. Evolution, in its restless creativity, had begun painting with finer brushes, and even as giants roamed to the open plains, another form took to the skies. Pterodactylus, while not a dinosaur by classification, soared above the kingdoms of lizards like a messenger of what was to come. It was small, delicate even, but it commanded the air. Flight, once the domain of insects, now belonged to vertebrates. Light bones, extended finger, membranes, precise eyesight, all converged in a miracle of motion. Below, the land trembled with each step of Camarasaurus herds, but above, pterosaurs drifted freely, seeing the world not through dominance but perspective. And what of the forest? In their shadows crept the Hypsilophodon, a swift herbivore no taller than a child. It ran on two legs, nimbly dodging predators. It didn't have horns or spikes. It didn't need them. Its strength was alertness, memory, and the precision of movement. Where Torvosaurus ruled through fear, Hypsilophodon survived through foresight. It's here that the Jurassic leaves us with its final lesson. That survival is not one path, but many. Some were armored, others were sharp. Some relied on size, others on speed. Some lived in herds, others alone. There was no single design for success, only the right design for the right moment. As the continents drifted further apart, the seeds of isolation were planted. Species split, ecosystems fractured, climates shifted, and beyond the horizon, change brewed like a storm. In the darkened skies of time, the first outlines of the Cretaceous sharpened, an age of color, of diversity, of teeth, unlike any before. The raptors would rise, the tyrants would thunder, the giants would return, stranger and more specialized than ever. But here, at the end of the Jurassic, we pause, to listen, to remember that in this age of early dominion, contrast was king, and every life, from the towering Giraffatitan to the darting Hypsilophodon, played a role in the grand and echoing song of evolution. Each step, each roar, each breath of fern-scented air carved a path toward something greater, and that path now leads us into the unknown. The Cretaceous beckons,